Hi, everyone. My name is Tiago. My friend Pedro and I are here to talk about Esmerald and Saffier. And what is this Esmerald? And basically, it's just the newest kid in the town in Python web frameworks in a synchronous fashion. Saffier is younger cousin ORM with a very familiar interface. They're also built on the top of SQL Alchemy Core, and basically is helping any project that is with Esmerald or even not Esmerald to integrate with any SQL database of your choice. So for the agenda, as you could probably see before, we had some technical issues. So I'm going to try to speed up here a little bit. Pedro will be talking a little bit more in detail. And then in the end, I will be doing some, well, because I already had some technical issues, I don't think I'm going to be live coding because what could possibly go wrong. But we have some prepared codes that we can show what is this that of Esmerald that Pedro is going to talk a little bit now, and then we'll be open for any other questions, which I really hope you do have questions.
As Tiago said, Esmerald is a Python development framework. It supports both sync and async. And we go now talking details, the features that the framework has. Okay, what can you expect from Esmerald? It's high performance. It's built on top of already stable solutions such as Starlette and Pydantic. It's quite easy to learn. You can read the documentation and get it started. There's plenty of examples. And it's quite easy to deploy as well. You're gonna find some things familiar if you're already used to certain frameworks like Django. And what it consists the entire ecosystem. Esmerald is built as both a sync and sync web server. One of the things we wanted to achieve is to have a clean framework. So we built it as using Pydantic to make the typing and the code a bit cleaner. Another thing that we decided to inspire on Django is the directives. Essentially, they are command line scripts that help us speed up the project creations, and other routine tasks that usually people do during deploy or project development. Esmerald is easy to learn. Take it from me, I just picked the framework, and in matter of a few hours, I could already develop an application. It's the syntax, it's quite friendly. And if you're used to Django, Flask, or FastAPI, you're gonna find it very easy and very familiar. The documentation. This is the focus point of Esmerald. We wanted the documentation to be complete, full of examples, and above all, with the guidelines, the do's and don'ts. Last but not least, when you develop an API in Esmerald, you may generate automatically API documentation in Swagger, Redux, or Spotlight elements. Now, the routing system is another piece of Esmerald that is really powerful. Despite being simple, we allow for nested and very complex routing systems using either the gateway, which is a specific endpoint, or an include, which allows you to point to other URLs without having the need to import the package of the sub-applications. One of the things about routings is that it's extendable. If none of the objects suits you, you can create your own. You can even create your own to import another ASGI application. For instance, you already have a full functioning Flask application. You can simply integrate it in another router, and it will work. Settings mechanism is for those who are already used to Django. It's pretty much the same. It's heavily inspired, decide to have everything in a Python class. You can have it pointing different settings for different environments. And a particular thing is when you have plugins, the plugins can have their own settings file inheriting from the parents and then customize specific ones. Esmerald has come with built-in middlewares. You already have more than 10. These middlewares are built on top of Starlette. So you can, if you want to build your own, you can build on top of Starlette middleware or extending one of Esmerald's middleware. One of the things about these middlewares is that they can be applied in multiple levels. They can be applied to a specific route. They can be applied to the whole application, to a set of API endpoints. It's versatile at this point. The interceptors is a specific thing that we decided to develop for Esmerald. Is when you want to add a functionality, let's say you want to create a login, but without having to modify the API endpoints. Interceptors allow to be placed without changing the endpoint, and you can put logic there. Just like the middleware, you can apply it at the application level, a specific set of routes, or even at the endpoint. With a few details. It's request only. It's not applicable to a response, and you can't modify the request. It's only a read only. You can check it. You can do things outside it. You can modify the request itself. Esmerald has also been designed to be extendable. Essentially, you have two ways to extend Esmerald. You can either develop a single plugin for a specific functionality, or you can develop a fully standalone Esmerald application and integrate it as a plugin to another Esmerald application. And both can work separately or as a part of another. This is the case where the settings can be either inherited, or you can have the child application, as we call child Esmerald, have its own set. Many more things you can find in Esmerald, in documentation, exception handlers, protocols, its own scheduler system, dependency injection, and plenty of more stuff. And because Esmerald does not work alone, you're going to find it that it has an entire ecosystem that you can integrate with. Saffier and ASGI are two ORMs focus on different aspects. Essentially, our schedule database is a utilities for database integration. And of course, Esmerald is the crown of the jewel. Now, Tiago here is going to give you a live demonstration of Esmerald and dive a little bit.
So a lot of things, a lot of text was there and a lot of information was passed, and kind of does not make any sense unless we actually see this working in the code, right? So the best way to make this happen, and I really, really hope this time the laptop doesn't stop like it was before, is to show you and explain exactly what is. I thought it was God. No, it's working. Sorry. Okay, so let's put these middlewares, routings, these open API generators. For a lot of people here with experience with FastAPIs, Django's, and other frameworks, this will be nothing super new to you. What is new is the way we do the syntax. So, without further ado, so Saffier, like Pedro mentioned, is an ORM. An ORM that was built to solve a specific issue where, for instance, for those who use Django, one of the best parts is actually, okay. So Saffier itself was heavily inspired on Django in terms of syntax, in terms of interface, in the way we declare models, the way we declare the fields. The problem of Django is only works with Django. So we cannot just extract the ORM and build something on the top of it. And this was one of the issues that I found when I was currently work for the Bank of England, and they were actually struggling a little bit to understand how could they just do an easy integration, because SQL Alchemy, for instance, is powerful, but it's quite hard to get it there, to get it right. So building Safir was to bring the Django feel in an asynchronous fashion into SQL Alchemy core. But before showing any of that, let me just, Pedro mentioned a thing called directives. So directives are something very, very similar to what Django calls management commands. So that's why actually we got the idea. We just didn't want to call management command because we thought it was too much of a ripoff. So one of the things that actually, okay, now I think it's working. One of the directives of Esmerald is when you start a server, for instance. If you're familiar with Django, you have the run server, which is their internal management command. So we thought, well, let's give the same name. Of course, internally is different, but let's give the same name to have the same feel. So to start a project in Esmerald, you have a client, and you can just do Esmerald run server as well, and automatically it will start the dev server. Now, what is this directive? Or how can I know which directives are available in Esmerald out of the box? So, like every other client, if you type Esmerald help, it tells you what you can, you cannot do, including shell plus and some things that can actually help you with your development process. So let's start with Esmerald run server. We built, well, it wasn't entirely a blog because blog is a little bit bigger than that, but we built some models to simulate a blog. So some articles, some users, some posts, just to show what happens when you start a server. So out of the box, like Pedro mentioned, bring Swagger, redoc, and stoplight. So you don't even need to worry about that. Again, you probably are familiar with these, with other frameworks as well. We just thought it was really okay for us to basically build these APIs. We'll go through the APIs in a second, because this wasn't just, a print screen. This one here, as you can, like in normal development, when you generate the documentation, when you just build the APIs, you would pass the information there about your API information, but this is just normal documentation. So in this case, when I query the database right now, like this, for instance, I think is the users, isn't it? Yes, no, the articles, okay. If I try it out, was actually quite fast returning. And actually this is Safir. Safir is actually give you this is in a synchronous fashion. So again, databases, right? And of course, I could go through API by API, but I don't think great talks were today about the CRUD. I don't think we want to go through the CRUD. Well, at least I hope. But if you do, just let me know, and we can just all fail together in any validations. Now, going back to the code, Esmerald has there was something very, very disturbing, but every time you need to start a project. So I'm almost sure that a lot of you struggle with how can I start a project or start it fast? On which structural folders should I have? Is the usual? How can I organize my code? Because I need to maintain it. So Esmerald is not opinionated to the point you can only have this in one way, not in any way, shape, or form. You can build it whatever you want. But we provide a directive that generates projects and generates what we call apps, like Django. Although it's not an app, it's just a Python package in a specific folder. So now I want to really for some. Okay, so I'm going to generate. Of course, I'm not going to code the whole thing again. I don't want to fail in front of you. You were a lot of people. So I'm going to generate a project here using one of those directives. And let's call, what do you want to call? Okay, anything. Okay, so let's create a project called anything. And not found, obviously. Obviously, because we're not. Done. So this gives you a scaffold of how could be a project for you with specific files, specific built-in like the routing system. Of course, you still need to build your own APIs And but it gives you like a heads up, saves you a lot of time already it saves you a lot of time already when it comes to starting a new project. And one of the files, again, this is not mandatory. You don't need to be like this. You need to build any of that like that. We just generate what we thought was a good idea for a project structure, nothing else. So Pedro mentioned something that I really liked. So I will actually show here. This is the main file, which has a nice message here, which the version of Esmerald used. And one of the things that Pedro mentioned was the complex routing system. And this is actually quite probably one of the most powerful features of Esmerald. What does this include? We never had problems with Python imports, mostly MROs, right? Ooh, this is a partial import. You're laughing, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Exactly. And this is the problem that I found as well when we was developing this. So I kind of got upset with myself, and I thought, yeah, I need to find a way to not having that issue. And one of the issues you might have, and I'm 100% sure you already had this, again, nice man, you're already laughing, is I want to be able to put my code in any part of the code base and import it, and basically not cry because I cannot import the file. And one of the things that I thought was, but how can I make this dynamic and intuitive enough to be used and not too verbose? For those who are familiar with the Django URL pattern was something very similar. So the include object, which now, if I go to the real project, the blog, the include basically tells me you can do in two ways. All of this is documented and it's in the documentation. But you can say, I want to import directly a list of URLs, which we call gateway, or you just tell me a string of a namespace where the URLs are, and I will import them for you. But then you need to understand, but how can we identify and try to explain which pattern should we use here? So the same way Django has URL patterns, we have a thing called route patterns, literally like this. If you have this in your file, in your URLs, any URL, the include of Esmerald will understand automatically which URLs we have there inside and will perform the imports for you and all the routing system for you automatically. And you can have nested imports. You can have an include, and inside the URLs, you have another include, so you can have as much nested as you want, because this does not affect performance in runtime, because it was built on the top of Starlette, which means the routing system, once the server starts, everything is you can access you can access as fast as you think you can do. Is not try to identify which type of URL needs to access. Everything is already assembled by the time of the server go up and running. So this, if you can see here, I have accounts, articles, and posts. The same way we have Esmerald create project to generate the project, we also have another one called create app. So the create app, we placed here inside a folder called apps because we thought this was a nice organization. So I generated an app and I call it accounts, and automatically generated all of this for me. Again, this is not mandatory. It's only if you don't want to waste your time. And one of the things that we understood, as you can see here, accounts view one URLs. This is important because if you go to the accounts view one URLs, you can call the URLs, but you can call routes, whatever you want to call it. It's a file name anyway. Automatically, it will import all of the routes. Well, in this case, connected to the accounts, and append the prefix accounts on the top, in the back, sorry. And that's why you have this API, view one articles, API, view one users, API, view one posts. You have basically everything is added there. And what is this API view one coming from? Well, in one of the scaffolds, obviously generated by Esmerald, automatically did imports, and I put it somewhere here. So again, generated all of this for me. This is how you start an Esmerald application. Quite simple, quite familiar interface, right? So this is nothing new. And what Pedro was referring as levels, this is quite of a concept. What is a level? So you have the application, you have the route, like an include, you have, or in this case, the route, a container of routes, like an include, you have the route itself, which is a gateway, and then you have the handler. Get, put, post, delete. Doesn't really matter, just a normal CRUD. Each level allows you to put its own permissions on an application level, on a route level. It doesn't really matter. It's your choice. It's entirely up to you. And then you can have, like Starlette had, you can have the on startup, the life cycle events. So the on startup, if you should happen something, on shutdown, if you should happen something else. In our case, we want to make sure every time we start a development server, the database connection is triggered. And this where I've been told I'm running out of time. Unfortunately, we don't have as much time as I would like to, but basically this, okay, I change here. Yep. And here is like Django. We thought, let's create an abstract user as well. So this is how you declare a model in Saffier. Of course, you don't see anything here because you don't have any fields, because we are inheriting from a country built in from Esmerald that integrates with Saffier, and we have the same for ASGI. So, like Django, once this opens, there we go. The interface is very familiar, isn't it? Looks like Django, but it's not Django. And because it's not Django, we just thought that Django was actually doing really well when it comes to easy interface with the databases. We designed in the same fashion, literally same fashion. Char field, integer field, foreign key. The difference is, and again, this is in the Saffier documentation. You need to add some extras into the meta class, where you need, in this case, need to say, by the way, this model of this table is in that database. So just database location. All of this, of course, Esmerald gives you a lot of built-ins, a lot of stuff out of the box. We just thought, yeah, let's provide some out-of-the-box models if you want to use them. One of the middlewares is the JWT middleware authentication, which is basically built and designed to integrate with Saffier and ASGI in our own very personal, opinionated way. Again, not mandatory. You can do it in your own fashion. And because I know when I'm running out of time, I'm just going to share quickly here what is that documentation I'm talking about, because I think I forgot to add the URL into the slides, but this will be available. I will talk to the host and it will be available. So this is the Esmerald documentation. This is how you start a project in a nutshell. Simple as that. Just this. It just works. And the documentation, once you go inside, obviously, is, like Pedro said, is full of examples, do's and don'ts. And my internet is not necessarily fast here, but you can go through all of this documentation. This is being is basically just super extensive, and you can see every questions, more complex cases, how to integrate with other third parties, possible WSGI applications. Like, what if I want to use Django inside Esmerald? Can I do it? You can. Same thing for Flask. There is no, oh no, because no, this is now ASGI. It's not going to work. No, it doesn't work like that. It does work, and it does work really well. Now, unfortunately, I cannot go through all of this video, or else we'll be here until tomorrow. And I think you want to go to the party tonight. And in that way, I will finish the presentation here. And if you have any question, I'm more than happy to answer.